Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've ever looked at your internal data and noticed that really expensive hiring cycle,
Hmm.
the recruiting, interviews, training, just kind of evaporates within the first 180 days, well, you know how painful that early attrition can be
Yeah.
and costly.
Oh, it's definitely not just a cost line item. It's real organizational friction. We're talking lost momentum, a huge hit to team morale, and honestly, a complete waste of valuable manager time.
Yeah.
So today, we're diving into what feels like the definitive framework for stopping that revolving door. Our analysis pulls from extensive industry research, particularly championed by Quota Pro Leadership, or QPL. They're real leaders in this space, using things like their North Star AI coaching and their cloud-based software to help organizations, actually standardize these kinds of retention practices.
Okay, QPL. Got it. So let's unpack this then. Our mission today seems pretty clear. Break down the hard facts of why new hires are leaving so quickly, and then, maybe more importantly, explore QPL's framework. What specific high-impact actions can you actually take in the first 90 days? Things that really improve retention.
We're aiming to move past the vague promises, right, towards tactical, measurable execution.
Exactly. Tactical is the word. Let's start with the root cause, the diagnosis. When you synthesize all the data on these early exits, the research consistently shows the causes clustering around 5 major themes, kind of like 5 big failure points in the employee experience.
Okay, 5 themes. What were those critical failures, the things that define that early exit path?
Right, so they are onboarding clarity, just knowing what to do, expectation match does the job, match the description. Then manager cadence, how often and how well does the manager engage? Culture reality, what's it really like day to day? And finally, enablement, do they have the tools and info?
If you think about it, those 5 pillars pretty much cover everything a new employee interacts with and experiences in those crucial first few months. Failure in even one, well, that significantly bumps up the attrition risks.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because QPL found that those 5 themes break down into 10 recurring, very specific drivers.
Yeah.
The things that are actively, you could say, pushing new hires out the door. So which of those specific drivers consistently pop up at the top of the list?
Yeah, the top 2 offenders are almost always mechanical failures, really basic stuff sometimes. Number 1, a poor onboarding experience. This is when the new hire just lacks clarity, maybe doesn't have the right tools, or feels like they can't get those early wins, the confidence boosters.
Okay, makes sense. And number 2?
Right behind that is misaligned expectations. That's the crushing discovery, usually pretty quick,
Right.
that the job role or maybe the day-to-day responsibilities simply do not match what was sold during the interviews.
Oof. Yeah, that job surprise feeling, that immediately suggests the failure point often isn't really with the new hire themselves, but maybe upstream. Like in management or the culture they walk into. What does the QPL data say about those factors?
It absolutely confirms it. The most critical factors are definitely managerial and cultural. We see huge attrition caused by just a sheer lack of manager support. We're talking sparse one-on-ones, maybe almost no meaningful feedback or coaching, a feeling of being adrift.
Left alone, yeah.
Exactly. And following that are these crucial disconnects. Weak culture fit, where the reality, the values and action day to day just doesn't match the company's glossy promises.
What you see on the website versus what happens in meetings.
Precisely. And then there's unaddressed leadership gaps. This could be inconsistency, maybe chaos, capability issues higher up. It just creates an environment of confusion and, frankly, risk for the people below.
So the environment itself could be toxic, or maybe just unmanaged right from the start. Which of the remaining drivers, in that list of 10, tends to surprise organizations the most when they actually look at this QPL data?
That's a good question. I think organizations often focus maybe too much on compensation.
Right, the salary.
Yeah, and too little on just basic organizational health. One of the surprise factors that consistently pushes people out is seeing early signs of dysfunction. And this isn't just, normal startup chaos. It's seeing toxic team dynamics, maybe blatant favoritism, or just general procedural confusion within the first few weeks. The new hire basically decides early on, you know what, this isn't worth fixing.
They see the writing on the wall quickly. So, to round out the 10 drivers then, we also have no clear career path, insufficient training, low engagement connection. And of course, the one people often think of first, compensation disappointment. This full list, it really functions as a critical pre-flight checklist for any organization, doesn't it? If you, the listener, see even 2 or more of those issues active in your teams, well, you should probably expect high churn.
Absolutely. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the diagnosis really tells us that early attrition isn't random bad luck. It's rooted in predictable failures of structure and management.
The diagnosis is pretty clear then. But okay, listing problems is one thing. Finding scalable solutions, that's the real deep dive. So if these are the gaps, what's the prescription? What are the 5 high-impact actions this QPL research points to for the first 90 days?
Right. And this is where it shifts. It shifts retention from being, say, a reactive HR measure to becoming performance architecture, something driven by the manager. So action number 1 hits that expectation gap immediately, the week 1 role charter.
A role charter. Tell us specifically, what does that look like? Is it complicated?
No, not at all. It's designed to be simple. A mandatory one-page document, co-created in the very first week. It outlines 5 specific, measurable outcomes the new hire needs to achieve in their first 90 days. That's it. But crucially, it also clarifies key collaborators who they need to work with and their decision guardrails. Where do they need to check in versus where can they just make the call independently?
Okay.
This directly tackles that misaligned expectations problem and the lack of onboarding clarity.
That seems like a really practical way to eliminate that job surprise we talked about. But I can already hear some managers thinking, ugh, more paperwork. What about the day-to-day rhythm, the manager's involvement?
That leads straight into action 2. Setting the manager rhythm. This has to be non-negotiable. We're talking weekly one-on-ones, but with a specific protocol baked in. It requires a built-in, say, 10-minute block dedicated only to microfeedback. What were the wins? What are the blockers? What's the next step? But the real leverage point here, the thing that addresses that lack of manager support head-on, is the stay check at day 21.
The day 21 stay check.
Yeah.
Okay, how does that work functionally? How do you do that without it feeling like, I don't know, a mini annual review dropped into the 3rd week?
Yeah, good point. It has to be concise. Focused on just 3 strategic questions. 1, how is your energy level? 2, where do you feel you are currently underutilized? And 3, what is one small thing the company could change right now to make your job better? It's proactive, right? It gives the employee an official, safe channel to voice concerns like those early signs of dysfunction we mentioned before they start polishing their resume.
That's smart. Yeah, it captures intent before it turns into action. Now, the flip side of clarity is impact. New hires need to feel productive quickly to avoid that low engagement trap.
Absolutely. That's action 3, the first impact task. This needs to be co-created with the manager, ideally in week 1 or 2. The key requirement is that it must be a shippable task, something tangible, but keep it small, less than 4 hours total work. Then, crucially, you schedule a mini demo for the team to see it. This accelerates what QPL calls time to first impact, or TTFI, and it builds that instant early confidence.
Okay, 2 weeks for a quantifiable win. That seems ambitious, especially maybe for complex technical roles. Why is that aggressive TTFI target so necessary, according to the research?
It is aggressive, but it's necessary because of momentum. The QPL data clearly shows that the longer you delay that first successful impact, the more likely the new hire is to experience doubt, maybe feel insufficiently trained.
And start disconnecting?
Exactly. They begin disconnecting. The short time frame actually forces the organization, not just the employee, to get the necessary access and systems sorted out immediately.
Right, it forces the support structure to be ready.
Okay.
Let's shift gears slightly to connection. That feeling of belonging, that directly impacts the culture reality problem, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And that's action 4, belonging by design. This cannot be left to chance. It has to be intentional. It means assigning a buddy on day 1. And crucially, booking a mandatory 15-minute intro meeting with that buddy on day 2. Just to chat, non-work topics, break the ice.
Okay.
You also need some kind of welcome ritual, whatever fits your culture. And you must ensure the new hire has one official win-share moment in those first 2 weeks. For instance, after they nail that first impact task, their manager should grab 10 minutes in the next team meeting or all hands to publicly celebrate it. Small thing, big impact.
Yeah, making it visible. You can't just hope they feel like they belong. And finally, the practical side. Solving that basic, frustrating, poor onboarding experience.
Right. Action 5. Enablement essentials. This covers the logistical basics that, honestly, often become massive frustrations if you mess them up. Tools access. Needs to be provisioned before day 1. No excuses. They need a quick, maybe 30-minute systems tour right away. Not a deep dive, just the basics. And a mandatory, say, 2 module learning sprint in week 1, covering the absolute essentials for their role. And maybe most importantly, actually documenting and sharing the how we actually work around here.
Ah, the unwritten rules.
Exactly. This isn't the official HR policy manual. This is sharing real artifact examples like brief templates, email norms, maybe simple decision-making flowcharts, things that show the operational reality and help solve the confusion caused by, say, unaddressed leadership gaps or just general process ambiguity.
That's a lot of intentional design packed into those first few weeks. If you had to pick just one action that, if done poorly, pretty much guarantees failure, which of these five would it be?
Ooh, tough one. But based on the data, if the manager rhythm fails, if those weekly 1.1s drop below, say, 50% completion in the first couple of months, none of the other four actions really matter much. That lack of basic managerial commitment just signals a fundamental failure in the organization's support system. It practically guarantees a high early exit rate.
Wow. Okay, so manager consistency is paramount. We have the diagnosis, we have the prescription from QPL. Now, how do we know this effort is actually working? What are the leading indicators, the metrics we absolutely must track?
Right. We need actionable data, not just hope. First, track that TTFI, the time to first impact we talked about. Organizations should track the median time and maybe the 75th percentile, the target. Ideally less than 14 days for role-appropriate impact.
14 days. Okay. What else?
Next, track managerial consistency directly, 1.1 completion rate. The target here has to be high. Aim for 90% or greater completion in the first 60 days.
90%. That keeps the pressure on. And what about measuring that crucial clarity piece? Do they know what they're supposed to be doing?
For that, we use a simple role clarity pulse survey. Maybe just one question. Target 80% or more of new hires agreeing or strongly agreeing with the statement, "I know what success looks like in my role." And naturally, you track belonging, perhaps with a similar pulse check. You need to see that trending upward week over week in the first 30 days. If those numbers are high and trending right, you know your systems are actually supporting early success.
Okay, metrics make sense. Now, knowing this framework needs to be implemented, fairly rapidly to catch those early exits, QPL also provides a structure, a 30-day implementation sprint. Can we walk through that quick framework for someone listening who wants to put this into practice, like next month?
Absolutely. This is the practical roadmap for managers and HR teams. Week 0 is all about prep. Get ready. Draft that role charter template. Create a buddy roster. And critically, pre-provision all the necessary tools and system access. Don't wait for day 1.
Get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Then you hit the ground running on day 1.
Correct. Week 1 is launch week. Run that role charter discussion with the new hire. Assign their first impact task. And get that first mini demo booked in the calendar.
Okay. Week 2.
Week 2 is all about cadence. Lock in that weekly 1.1 rhythm, make sure it happens, and the manager starts delivering that specific micro-feedback on wins and blockers. Start building the habit.
Right. Then week 3 sounds like it's about connection and essential knowledge transfer.
Precisely. Week 3 is belonging and enablement. The manager conducts that crucial day 21 stay check. The new hire completes those 2 required enablement modules. And you share that vital how we actually work artifact, the meeting norms, the decision flow, whatever it is.
Got it. And finally, wrap it up.
Week 4 is review. Look at the data. Inspect those leading indicators, TTFI, 1.1 rates. Identify and close any systemic gaps you're seeing. And importantly, showcase those early wins from the new cohort to the wider team. Reinforce that culture of early impact and success. It's a tight, very intentional sprint.
It sounds intense, but focused.
It is. And the strategic advantage here, going back to QPL's findings, is really clear. Retention isn't just some HR function or an unfortunate expense line item. It's actually compounding productivity. It's cultural stability. And it dramatically lowers the operational drag of constantly having to recruit and train new people.
Absolutely. It feels like by implementing these clear levers, these specific actions, you shift retention. It moves out of just being, a centralized HR problem, and you turn it into manager-led performance architecture. Functionally, that probably means manager scorecards, accountability. They need to be tied directly to these leading retention metrics, right? Making the outcome predictable, not just accidental.
That's exactly the goal. Predictable, positive outcomes. What this whole discussion today highlighted, I think, is that consistency and intentional design. Those are the true differentiators. They're the difference between successful onboarding that builds momentum and that costly, morale-sapping early exit. If you fail to design the experience, you basically default to chaos.
Well put. Fail to design, default to chaos. So here's a final thought for you listening. If retention truly is compounding, like interest in a bank account, What small structured action? Maybe it's that mandatory day 2 belonging intro with a buddy. Maybe it's enforcing that specific 4-hour mandate for the first impact task. What one small thing will you implement this week to start accruing that compounding productivity? Because a small design change now could literally save you months of frustration and thousands in recruiting costs down the line. That's our deep dive into the architecture of early retention.